The second episode of season 2 of Loki premiered this week, and it's entitled, I'm not kidding. It's entitled Breaking Brad. Breaking Brad.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah, obviously a Breaking Bad reference. Also, Brad. Yeah. So, a little surprised at that, but more surprised with the fact that I actually found some stuff that I enjoyed in this episode.
Thank you, Brad. I really am touched.
Now, that doesn't mean this is great. I'm still of the opinion that Loki's missing the mark. But there's some stuff in here that, in the end, I think I kind of liked.
Well, this should be interesting.
Now, we actually pick up in a strange place. We kind of pick up a little bit further in time than we left off, because when we left off in episode 1, General Dox had sent off a bunch of time cops to go snatch Sylvie. At least that's what we thought. But we find ourselves now in London, 1977, where Loki and Mobius show up, and apparently they're trying to track down X5 because he's gone rogue. He's gone missing. And apparently he's no longer being a hunter. He's living out his best life as a movie star named Brad Wolf in a movie called Zaniac. He's had some sort of meteoric rise to fame, and basically it's like he's given up his job as a time cop and is just hanging out being a movie star. Well, Loki and Mobius, track him down. We actually get a little bit of Loki magic, which is kind of enjoyable to see. A little bit of the old Loki is back. They capture him because they're convinced that he can help lead them to Sylvie. Loki and Mobius bring X5 back to the TVA. They discover that he has his TemPad, his time tricorder, basically, has been modified for some reason. They try to figure out what's going on with it. They go to, OB, but he's a little bit busy. You see, he's trying to repair the temporal loom because even though they did some repairs last time, they stabilized Loki. The temporal loom still's got a lot of problems because of all the branching timelines. So he's too busy to really look into it. Mobius and Loki try fixing it. And ultimately they realize, what they really need to do is they need to go do some interrogation of X5.
Let's take a run at Brad Wolf. Let's take a big run at him.
There are some, heavy plot exposition scenes here. We find out that the TVA is not working quite well because Miss Minutes has disappeared. In fact, she's out there apparently helping Ravonna Renslayer, who then Loki informs everyone who's also working in league with He Who Remains. So the TVA is basically on their own trying to solve all this themselves. Loki and Mobius go to play, good cop, bad cop in an interrogation scene. It's actually not that bad. Some stuff is revealed, which I think is really rings true in some sense. X5, or as he now likes to be called, Brad Wolf or Brad.
Don't waste our time, X5.
It's Bradley.
Right, Brad.
He points out some things about Loki, which are really true.
You're just trying to make up for all the terrible, awful shit you've done in your life, you pathetic little man.
Yeah. Loki, when he was taken in 2012 from the timeline, he was a villain. Bad guy. This Loki we have in the series is not the Loki we've seen. He's trying to get under Loki's skin. He definitely does rile him up a little bit, but surprisingly, it's Mobius that he really rankles. Starts talking about the lives that he could have led, and just Mobius sort of loses it.
And until you wake up, you're just a nowhere man. You're a nowhere man.
Loki and Mobius walk off to let off some steam. They end up in basically like a 1950s, 1960s automat and sit down to enjoy some pie together.
It's really good. It is.
Again, this isn't really, it's not that bad of a scene. It kind of works. They talk a little bit about, the type of person Loki is and how he's lost his temper before and acted irrationally. He refers back to when he tried to take control of Tony Stark with the Mind Stone and just ended up throwing him off a building.
Tried to use the Mind Stone on Tony Stark. It didn't work, so I threw him off the building.
Of course, we know that didn't work out for Loki in the end. He's here. And we've all seen the Avengers. Mobius is asked about, what other life you could have led, and he kind of wants to avoid it. He doesn't really want to talk about it. He knows it's out there, but his life is this. He's not interested in this other life that could have been.
The TVA is the only life I've ever known. I like it.
While this is all going on, Obi's continue to try to repair the temporal loom. Ultimately, when he finds out the only way they can be repaired is basically the person who put it all together, which is He Who Remains. And of course, he's gone. So, they're hoping maybe Ms. Minutes can do it. But again, she's missing as well. So they're now facing the crisis of the temporal loom falling apart. It's actually not one of my favorite parts of this show. There's another part that's not good for me personally. It's just overall what's going on. Back in Brad's jail cell, Loki and Mobius come in with some sort of device, call it the Gizmo. I guess it's some sort of torture device, which they're going to try to extract information out of Brad. And apparently, I guess Loki says, "Oh, I forgot the control pad." Well, this is all a clever ruse to basically try to torture Brad Wolf. This device kind of, puts him in this cube that gets increasingly smaller and smaller as Loki fiddles with the buttons. And the whole point is to try to get him to reveal what he knows. And what he ends up knowing and what he ends up saying is basically, look, I did run off on my own. I went off to live my own life only after I found Sylvie. And he agrees eventually to take Mobius and Loki to go find Sylvie.
If I tell you where she is, are you gonna let me go?
You're gonna show us.
Of course, we all know that Sylvie's been working in the McDonald's, what we saw her in the last episode. Loki confronts her there. There's some interaction between the two, and it's very clear that Sylvie doesn't want to have anything to do with this. She's happy, just handing out Happy Meals and McNuggets to eager customers in 1982.
I have no intention of going back there. My life's here now.
Loki's trying to convince Sylvie to help him because in the last episode, we saw that he saw her in his future. So somehow he figures that she has something to do with what's going on with the TVA, and he needs her help, to stop all these timelines going crazy, to try to put things right where things once went wrong. Yeah, I did make a Quantum Leap reference.
Oh boy.
Mobius is enjoying a McDonald's apple pie, which clearly is a marketing point here. All the while he's talking with Brad, who is very eager to leave. Well, it turns out because you know what? Brad knows what's actually going on. Yeah, see, he did abandon everything, but not before finding out that General Dox's plan wasn't really to stop Sylvie. Yeah, she had another plan, and that's to stop all the timelines. So what General Dox and her time cops are doing is going back and just blowing up all the different, timeline branches, which is what really the TVA was doing from the beginning. And this actually leads into a kind of generic battle where Loki, Mobius, and Sylvie go to this warehouse where I guess, General Dox and her time cops are staging their temporal attack. There's some battle going on. It's like I say, it's actually supposed to be exciting and dramatic. It's kind of dull and boring. They're able to stop them from what they're doing, but not before a whole bunch of the timelines are wiped out. They return to the TVA and see on the screen, variant branches disappearing, and everyone's very upset about billions being lost. This is supposed to be a dramatic scene, I think. But again, all we're seeing is just, lines disappearing on a computer screen. I don't think it really packs the emotional punch they were hoping for. And that's kind of where things are left off. Ultimately, Sylvie decides, look, I don't want to have any part of this. And she just goes back to shuffling fries at McDonald's. That's kind of where this whole episode ends. Her just hanging out on a truck outside of McDonald's. As I said, there's actually some stuff that I liked in this episode. I think the overall arc, for the end, it really fell off for me. It became very generic. Stop the bad guys, stop the attack. And it was actually wrapped up really quick. You know, General Docs went off last episode. She shows up at the end of this episode. They stop the time cops. That's done. Like I said before, the snipping of the timelines, wiping out of branches, and people standing around going, billions are dying. I don't get the sense that they're really affected by this, because the whole purpose of the TVA in the beginning was to wipe out variants. I don't know where this moral conscience suddenly came to all these remainders at the TVA who don't believe in whatever was being done before. I don't understand it. I don't think the connection is made. They know they're all variants. They know they're all snatched from wherever timeline they were in. They know the falsity of Kang, He Who Remains plan. But I don't really get the investment they have in all these timelines being wiped out. I don't think it's well played. But you know what? Like I say, there is some stuff that is well played here. I do like the interaction between Mobius and Loki. And this kind of goes to what I always thought the show was going to be. I thought this whole show was going to be kind of, you know, Loki going through time, stopping, you know, rogue elements. I mean, he was still a villain. And Brad made a point.
You're a villain. You're good at it.
And I really do think that would have made this whole show more interesting. The Loki who died in Infinity War had gone through a whole progression. He had went through his whole arc. And he died ultimately being a hero. This Loki's not a hero. And I don't really buy that he watched a videotape of his life and goes, I'm so sad, I want to be a better person. I don't buy that. Loki in 2012, when he was snatched, after he just fought the Avengers, after he just launched the attack with the Chitauri, he's still a bad guy. He's still a bad guy. And that would have been a more interesting story. What would bad guy Loki be doing? Bad guy variant Loki, given the options of being snuffed out of existence or having to work for the TVA, conniving god of mischief Loki would have said, aha, I will work for the TVA, but I'm going to work for my own purpose. That would have been a more interesting story.
It's riveting. Keep going, I want to hear more.
So where he and Mobius team up in a, you know, buddy cop style show, which I thought this was going to be, that would have been good. And that's kind of what the beginning of this show was. They were like tracking down a variant. That could have been interesting. And then seeing what Loki really intended to do, what the true villain, true 2012 villain Loki was doing, that would have been interesting. But we don't get that story. We get this reformed Loki who's trying to be a good guy. And, you know, God dang it, that Brad guy is really smart.
You know, you're right. I have done some terrible, awful things.
Loki's a bad guy, and he should be a bad guy. That's why people liked him. We know we got to enjoy the arc, but this Loki, this villain Loki would have been good. That would have been a good show. That's what I liked about this episode compared to the others. It's what I thought the show would have been, and it really would have been interesting. So I don't know if it's going to maintain this idea of tracking down variants or not. I suspect not. I think we're going to start heading into the Kang, He Who Remains element very soon. Tracking down Renslayer, finding Ms. Minutes, you know, doing whatever they're trying to do with the sacred timeline or anything in this weird multiverse saga that clearly no one has thought out ahead of time. Regardless, I give credit for elements of the show that I found enjoyable, and not just because it's called Breaking Brad.
Thank you, Brad.
Questions, comments, witticisms down below. Click the like button. Click the subscribe button. I'm almost at 100 subscribers. Help put me over that 100 number. See y'all later.
Okay, most of all, Brad's an asshole.